Right folks, morning. It's just after 4 o'clock in the morning here, and I've got insomnia real bad, so I'm just looking at some comments on one of my recent posts. Well, I posted it in a lot of places, but it's on Post-Apocalyptic Cars on Facebook about this Anglia. I did, and I spoke about the fact I used some stuff from my bits box, and in the past cut the pit rice as well, like what's in your bits box, what have you got, what stuff do you use, etc, etc. So I'm going to talk about bits boxes and bits box bashes, as I like to call them. I like to think of them as, and why I keep in my bits box, because I've got a lot of third-party parts in my bits box, so parts specifically made for converting Hot Wheels and Gaslands and auto kill and car combat stuff. And I've also got lots of stuff from other war games, Warhammer 40,000 stuff and bolt action stuff, and I've also got lots of parts and bits that necessarily come from nowhere, that's so found items off other toys, etc. The thing with this is it's one of my main hobbies. I've got a couple of main hobbies, but this is at the moment, this is the one I spend the most time doing. So I've invested some money in third-party parts. I've got a lot of third-party parts at the moment, but that ebbs and flows and that dwindles and comes back up, etc. So I'm going to talk for a few of these cars. One of the easiest ways to change the look of a car is to do like an engine swap. So the engine that comes in a Hot Wheels 32 Ford, this engine here, with the exposed exhausts, and obviously it's got a very, very tiny sort of like scoop on the top and the grille. It's one of the easiest. There's two different versions of the 32 Ford to start off with. There's the one where this part's part of the plastic engine, and there's one where there's a scoop part that's part of the car itself, which I don't have an example of because I've used them all. But so this is one of the easiest swaps, because you can drill this front rivet out. Oh, sorry, you can drill this front rivet out here, and the engine pops straight off. Done, dusted, you've harvested an engine. So in these two here, the front, that's where the engines have come from, 32 Fords. So on the Anglia, for example, it's a 32 Ford engine with a plasticard stock. So that's a square tube cut with a back plate put on it, cut to make it look like one of those US mailbox scoops they used to do back in the day. They still do now, some people do them now, and some more modern hot rods. And obviously I've fabbed the underside out of plasticard and rod and stuff. But that's just a 32 Ford engine attached to the Anglia. I've cut the front off, I've added plasticard to make a firewall, and that's that. On the hearse, done the same thing. I didn't actually make a firewall on this because this is a quick build. Same thing, I've got a 32 Ford engine. This is a third-party piece from Dice Mechanic Games. I've just stuck the wheels on underneath, trimmed the chassis down to fit. So instantly, irrespective of the back end, the front end looks, get in focus, the front end looks totally different. So they're straight front off engines in. It's not just the 32 Ford engine you can use though. So for example, on this Midnight Auto, cut the front off. We'll talk about the front in a second. That's a grille from a Racing Champions car that I've cut up, and this engine's from a mod rod with an air filter from Dice Mechanic Games, so a third-party air filter on it, and it's still on the Midnight Auto chassis. So I've had to do a little bit of spacing underneath. But I've totally changed the look from this, zoom back out a bit, to this, just by a bit of cutting and shaping. Little bits of plasticard, firewalls made out of plasticard again on this. And talk about Midnight Auto and what it looked like originally. This front piece here, I've then taken and put on this 32 Ford, which probably gave its engine to one of these two over here. So I've used a Midnight Auto front end and grille, but not this front underbar, because I'm still using the 32 Ford base. Get in focus, in camera actually. Obviously, because there's no post anymore, this is just glued down, and these two little side exhausts are from Dice Mechanic Games again. And then that same Racing Champions car that gave us the grille on this Midnight Auto version gave us this hood. And this grille was from a different vehicle. This grille is from a Hot Wheels Ford pickup. I've got a few of these because I swapped the Hot Wheels Ford pickups engines for the 32 Ford engines for non-Gaslands custom, so like customised Hot Wheels. This is a piece of plasticard square tubing with some rivets made out of plasticard. Base is a bit different on this because this is on a 32 Ford base, but to get the hood to line up with the body, I've had to angle the hood slightly, step it up with some plasticard underneath. So that's 5 cars there. Move that over. That's 5 cars there. Let me have a drink quick. I've changed the look of quite significantly just with Hot Wheels or other die cast parts, and you can do that quite easily. Cut the front off a lot of stuff. Cut the front off this bug and use the 32 Ford engine again. So this is one of those rat rod bugs. Cut the front off. Used the same base. Used the fact that the front axles are slightly raised on this to angle the engine to give it that angled look. 32 Ford engine. Nothing on top, it's exactly as it came off the car. I've used some third-party side exhausts from Dice Mechanic Games again. Change the look of that Beetle into that. Also, to keep with the theme, I've cut, because it's obviously a rear engine car, cut the exhaust off. Keep it as it is. I'm trying to think if I've got any more right to hand. I've done that too. There's a few. I'll talk about this one as well while we're here. And we'll talk about bits boxes. So when I did this car, obviously Elvis from Mad Max, or my impression of Elvis from Mad Max Fury Road, is a 32 Ford. Cut the boot out, added some copper wire. We'll talk about that copper wire in a bit because it's quite handy. And then all I've done is cut the front off and extended it with plasticard. Butted up 2 32 Ford engines and added some 3D printed scoops from Carmsel Designs, Carmsel Design wheels. Little etched brass skull. Totally changed the look of the vehicle. They do a car that's almost like a Midnight Auto with 2 engines. I want to say it's like the too fast or way too fast. You see stuff, ones like that, they're well worth grabbing because engines. Sort of a no-brainer. That's the biggest way to change a car without having to do very much. It's the same as let's talk about this quick, and then we go to the bits boxes because this is quite cool. So this is a Matchbox Beetle, which I've hacked loads of parts off. So I've hacked the wheel arches off, I've hacked the back off, I've hacked the front off, I've kept the chassis, I've had a copper wire here, and then this engine's not a 32 Ford engine, this engine's out of something else, and I can't honestly remember. It's another die-cast car, and I've just added some plastic exhausts from North Star military figures. Again, without the resin weapon or the 3D and the resin wheels, and that's their resin, their plastic, I've instantly changed the look of the car without necessarily stepping out of what I could buy too much or make. I could make it the exhausts. I like the exhausts that I've got here. I could put a 32 Ford engine there. This engine's a little bit better because it's obviously got a flat front. I'd have to craft something on the 32 Ford, but that's a way to make your vehicle look different just by changing a few bits up. The Midnight Auto to 32 Ford's quite a cool look because I quite like that sort of hinged in the middle hood covering. Sorry. What I'll do is I'll quickly clear these off, and I won't do any cuts in this. We're staying in one. If you hear meowing, it's my cats because they're excited that I'm downstairs. But I've also locked them up upstairs because my daughter's asleep, and so's my partner. And it's just easier that way. Just pull these back. Luckily enough, they're all right by my desk. All right on my desk, in fact. And let's just quickly talk about bits boxes. So, bits boxes. So I've got a couple of these like fishing tackle boxes that I keep bits in. And this one, they're organised because I like a bit of organisation to a certain extent, apart from the middle section, which is just like a dumping ground. So I keep in my bits boxes stuff like this. So I've got 3D printed stuff and resin stuff and stuff harvested from other games. So I've got some parts here harvested from not Dark Future, Devil's Run. Sorry, I had to look because the box is behind for the game. I've harvested some parts here. This from Devil's Run as well. And I've got some 3D printed parts and some resin parts. But then I've also got in here Hot Wheels parts that I've harvested, like this tow hook part. That's a surfboard. I was going to do like a apocalypse surf team because I thought that'd be quite cool. That's off of a milestone. Hot Wheels surfboard in there as well. A few other resin and different bits and bobs. In this middle section I've got cast parts, some metal parts made by a company called Chrome Bandits, which are right bare to build with. I bought them thinking that they'd be alright, but I'm not as dexterous as they need to be. Then I've got, let's move all these 3D and resin bits out of the way. It's not really what I'm talking about. So then here I've got paper clips, which are great for rods and axles, etc. Some Warhammer bits, like little vials and stuff on there. Focus. I have to excuse my hands. I don't want to wear gloves because I've got absolutely ruined hands. I'm a nail biter. No one really needs to see that on YouTube. So I've got stuff like this. A Pontiac Firebird car, that one with the exposed engine. So I took the engine out, harvested the car, changed it about, kept the engine because it's a decent engine. I've got hoods and bonnets I've cut off other cars. Tuned engines because the air filters are good. So they're tuned cars, they're the non-realistic cars where everything's exaggerated but the car's smaller. Like that air filter off the top. Be useful. Warhammer Citadel skulls, always great. Add them to everything if you wanted to. This sort of mesh here, you can use loads of different people that make the mesh. They use it for plaster. I specifically buy model stuff, but you can use the plaster mesh. I've used it in the past. Granny grating, as I call it, which is like cross stitchers use it. You can get that from in the UK from Hobbycraft, in the US from Hobby Lobby and places like that. Got a couple of different sizes for window bars and armour and stuff like that. The little tubes that protect the tips of your paintbrushes, especially your cheap ones. For some reason in the UK, I keep seeing lots of cheap brands that use Humbrol's not one of them. They're actually alright for the money, but they use these brush protectors on fairly cheap brushes that you know you're going to knacker quite quickly. They're good because they're good, but they're bad. So unlike proper plastic tube, because it's quite thin, it bends and it kinks. But if you wanted to run a load of pipes out, like as if you've got exposed headers out your bonnet of your car, you just cut some bits off, stick them straight to your bonnet in a row. You've done that. I've got a hood of something, bits of plastic card, etc. And then I've got like engines, so I've got resin and... We're in focus here? No, we're not, because I'm an idiot. There we go. So I've got figures, we'll talk about them in a different video. I've got resin, I've talked about them in the past as well. Got resin and 3D printed engines. Some engines I've harvested. That's a 32, that's not a 32.4, that's a, drop that down the front. That's out of Drag Racer. Another tuned engine with a big doohickey on it. And other engine bits from different cars, not just Hot Wheels. M2 machines are really good for parts. A lot of the M2 machines, the hood's open. And you got your valve covers and stuff, and obviously that's had a blower or something on it I've taken off and used on something else at some point. I've even got wheel arches that I've cut off stuff, like that Beetle, that Matchbox Beetle. I've cut the wheel arches off with a hobby saw, and I've kept them because I might find a car that I can make the wheel arches slightly wider with. It's silly not to keep it, if that's the case. Let's have a look at this other bit of box here. Excuse me, let me just bring this back a bit. There we go. So, a friend of mine sent me these core end terminals, electronic core end terminals. They're brilliant for exhaust. They crimp a little bit, so you've got to be careful with them. Inside from a HHT gun roll. If you know what a HHT gun is, it's worked in retail. You know how much it sucks. copper wire, so this was harvested out of old security lights, like industrial security lights. I had a lot more, but because it's malleable, it's not as hard as paper clips. It's great for like the railings I showed you before. Like you get a chance to, someone's chucking out old security lights, and 9 times out of 10 when they chuck them out, they have to take the battery out, because obviously they're battery backups on a lot of them. You get the copper there without having to muck about doing it yourself. And then in here, for example, I've got the front of a Packard. I've cut off. I'll cut that off, obviously. Luckily enough, my room is easy to get around. So now, cut that off. Cut the rear arches off as well, and I've added a 32 Ford engine again, and a Calypso Design 3D printed part on there. I've kept the front and the arches. Shut up. And all the arches actually. Same as with the Beetles, I've kept the front and the arches. Use them on war rigs. This front here might go on a 32 Ford because I like. Better not wake the baby up. Yeah, because I like the look of it. More granny grating, roll cage I've cut out of the car. It's like that. You can say the words bits box, but until everyone's bits box, I've cut a spoiler or something there as well. Everyone's got different bits and bobs in their bits box, like harvested stuff. I think these are WD-40. These are cool. If you want to do wheel swaps, where's the camera? So these are those, they do them in red as well. These are the clear rubber tubes. I think they're rubber that come off WD-40 and stuff. But the hole, this is not going to focus properly. The hole is the exact same, slightly smaller diameter than a Hot Wheels axle. So if you wanted to extend the track of a vehicle, you can use these. The thing that happens though is it's got a lot of bounce in it. Obviously it's flexible. To extend it too far, you get some weird sort of stanced look to it, almost like suspension. But what you can do is, if you can't, or like I've done in the past, you've run out of a specific size of rod or tube that you normally use for axles, you can use these as like a packer to bring it up to the size you need, or bring it down to the size you need. I've kept a lot of windscreens and stuff. I've just done a build, I'm just done a paint job on a car, and I've lost the windscreen, and it's a convertible, and it's infuriating because it's gonna look amazing, but I've got to source a new windscreen, so I always keep windscreens anyway, so I'm going to hopefully try and cut a windscreen to fit. The problem about the windscreen plastic is it's a bit hard to cut sometimes. I've kept some interiors and steering wheels. They're always good for like decoration, and also you never know, 32 Ford, you never know when you might need a piece. That's another good source of bits for conversions, is the Halo games cars and the Batmobile cars, especially the ones with guns. That's got like a mounted gun on there. So I've took the wheels already for something else. So I've just specifically picked up a car when I've been in the supermarket, like a quid car, £1 car, £1.50 car, and I've got it for the wheels and the gun, and I might be able to use the seats. So I've broken it down specifically for parts, which I sometimes do, especially with the tuned cars. That's Roger Dodger. So Roger Dodger car is another good Hot Wheels car for bits. It already comes with a cut-out hood, and it makes a decent looking car by itself. It's got a side exhaust, it's got an engine poking out the bonnet with like a supercharger on it, but it's also handy to use that part because it has no grille in front of it. Got a sound before some other builds. Top of a Matchbox trailer, more hoods. So when I cut bits off, like the hoods and the front end and stuff, I tend to keep all the bits. I've got another box just full of metal bits down here. I'm not going to show you because it's pretty rubbish, literally. Just if you're building a war rig or you want to add extra armour and you want it to look different, that's always handy. So in here, that's in the wrong place, but I've got a grill off a Hot Wheels that I've used for a custom that I've taken off. That's handy to keep again. So that could go on a 32 Ford and change the look entirely because it's got headlights on it. And then I've got resin and 3D printed stuff, some Warhammer bits and bobs in here as we go along, like tow hooks and a Warhammer vehicle. And there's another grill there off a bone shaker, and another grill there. I've just lost my divider between that and that. Oh no. Put my head in the way, sorry. Oops, glasses. Yeah, that's off another one of those Fords. So just keep all the bits you can. And most of the resin and 3D printed parts in there. And I've got, this is all weapons along the bottom here. So flamethrowers and stuff, 3D print ammo. 140,000 orcs are great. Stuff like their targeting sights. Focus. Not going to focus because it's been a pain. You know orcs, you know what I mean. Take me forever to get that to focus in otherwise. This thing here I found on the floor in my garden. Talking about found items. This orange thing here. But I don't know if you can see. I'm trying to get this to, I'm on an iPhone. I do apologise. The front half of it has got fins on it, so it looks like a Vickers machine gun, I think. So in the bits box. Other guns and stuff you can use, they're in my storage here. I said before, that stuff from Bolt Action. Thing. I use them for storage. So like, 1/72 scale, so the scale's a little bit out. But people tend to say that Hot Wheels would be 1/64 or 20mm, 1/72 28mm or thereabouts, and this is where you get into like a bit of a scale war, a scale bash, or difference in scale. So I'll do that in a second. So there, that's a sniper rifle from Bolt Action. Oh no, organisation came out the window. Yeah, so that's a sniper rifle there. So I use that as a bit of storage, in fact, even to the front. In fact, I've got stuff like this. Like a brain gun and an arm from a Bolt Action. I'll take the sling off. I'll cut just in front of the arm. Mount it on a bonnet coming out of the windscreen, slightly out of scale, but that's the whole point to some extent. Let's put this away. Other stuff. I've got stuff. Sorry, my cats are getting mental in my living room. So I've got like bar stock and tubes and wire and stuff in one box, and I've got sheet material in another, so I've got stuff like this, which is like flower arranging wire with a coating on it. So I use that to make hoses. Focus on this phone. I've got some crud on the lens, so I've used it to make hoses on this. There's a couple of Games Workshop hoses. There's some made like copper wire in there as well, painted up. I've used that to make hoses on that. Because it's malleable, it's easy to bend. And I've got thin copper wire specifically for making wires and hoses. Then I've got stuff like Albane alloys, like tubes for axles and gun barrels. Plastic stuff in lots of different diameters and shapes. I won't dwell too much on this because this is called heat shrink tubing. Handy to have, because you can have to shrink down, and different square and circle cut stuff. And this 0.35 rod, so 0.88mm rod is what I use for rivets, for scale rivets. If I do like armour plates or do a battle wagon, where I do battle wagon, go into Warhammer then. If I do a war rig and you want to make rivets and add rivets, that's a good size for that. And I've got sheet material. Again, mostly plastic card. These are good. some found material. So the San Pellegrino, I don't know that's how you say it, it's got texture on it. So you can use that for tarpaulins, you can cut it out, stick it on in the shape you want, and then when you prime it off, you can paint it like a blue. That's quite cool for tarpaulins. Balsa wood, textured stuff, granny grating again, plastic card, mesh, builder's mesh, and I found this. This is part of a shop display. It's not plastic card, it's just plastic, but it's a decent thickness, so I use that. And I've got a big piece of clear blister plastic for glass if I need to, windows, more wood in there, and I've got some etched brass parts, so made by Secret Weapon Miniatures. They're really, really good. A little bit pricey, because etched brass is, but that's what it is. And the last thing to talk about is wheels. Quickly, this pop. So, I do, thank you. Focus on this is rubbish. Babbling as always. So yeah, so I've got some wheels I've harvested from Hot Wheels here, and Matchbox. So I do a lot of customs, as in normal customs. So, I say normal customs, so take your car, strip it, add real riders, so rubber wheels and tyres, aftermarket ones, change the colour, put it back together, detail it. So I do normal Hot Wheels customs as well. We'll talk about that in later videos at some point, because I'm big on the Gaslands and the post-apocalyptic and stuff. So whenever I strip a car, I'm going to change the wheels, keep the wheels, especially if they're interesting ones. Sometimes I buy especially off-road wheels from Matchbox, prefer them to some of the other off-road wheels. And I also harvest other wheels as well as I go, so like M2 Machines ones, Johnny Lightning Racing Champions, some monoblocks which are made specifically, some other brands that are made specifically for Hot Wheels, and then I've got like, Hot Wheels wheels that I've harvested. Cars, the film cars, the cars that they make, Mattel make, I think, not sure, don't hold me to that. Mattel, don't come after me, because they're made by someone else, like Tyco or something like that. This focus, drive me bonkers. Don't focus on my fingers. There we go. So these are Johnny Lightning Lightning McQueen wheels off one of the cars from the Cars film. They're great for wheels, especially oversized stuff. Then some of them, like Mater, that's an exposed engine. What you find in the UK is that they'll pop up in like pound shops and like B&M, so cheaper shops for a quid, £1.50. So they're out of scale slightly, but you can take parts off them and use those parts elsewhere. And that's part of it. I think for me and my builds, it's not 50-50. Well, it is 50-50 actually. Let me bloody focus. Drive me bonkers. I'll buy. There we go. We'll go there. Cool. I'll buy cars specifically for parts, but then I'll buy, like this Packard, for example. I bought it because I like the shape, but then I also saw that if I cut the rear wheel arches and the front off, I could turn it into something totally different, and it'd be hard to tell it's a Packard. It's a hot rod, but it's a 5-door hot rod, and that appealed to me. So I'll buy cars, and then it's just working out what you're going to do after that. So I'll buy cars for the parts, like the engines. The 32 Fords I'll harvest them for engines, but then I'll use the 32 Fords to build other stuff. Obviously, like I said before, by sticking a new front end on. So that's really, for me, that's what it is. It's a bits bashing, or bits box bashing. It's a bit kit bashing. It's part finding stuff. It's part buying stuff as well. Anyway, we're at 30 minutes now. I think I've rambled enough for whatever time in the morning it is now. The sun's coming up, so it's coming up for 5. That was just a quick one. I'll pop this on in a minute, and then I'll put links to this in my Facebook, etc, etc. Anyway, folks, hope that's been a little bit more informative than me just saying, yeah, it's in my bits box. And I'll see you all next time.